Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we've got Chris Rowe of Rowe Hunting Resources. Chris is on his way to Colorado for his over-the-counter elk seasons. We just covered an episode talking about a little bit of a rehash or a recap or some new conclusions on what we were talking about in episode 315. Chris, I want to cover in this episode, we've had some questions come in. You've answered some questions about this Eclipse. And first and foremost, did you get to see the Eclipse yourself, and what did you think?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny. I was back home in Kansas, and if you looked at the path where the Eclipse was going, at our house it was like 98%. But dang it, the dead center path was just an hour and a half straight north of me in Nebraska. So Kelly and I and Jeff, our dog, piled in the vehicle, and we headed north. And I wanted to I knew right where I needed to be dead smack dab under it, like perfect. Like I'm on the line of perfect totality, but there was a good spot to pull off that was just too good. It was only about 3 miles south of that, so I was like, good enough. So yeah, we pulled in, got the cooler out, and had a little picnic there, and got to watch the whole thing. And for those people that are listening that suffered through the traffic, I saw some of the stuff coming out of Wyoming. I saw some of the stuff in Oregon. I'm like, goodness gracious. We literally had like no traffic. I think we encountered like 20 vehicles extra. It was just a smooth sailing to where we were going to be. We pulled off the side of the road. There was no one else around us. It was perfect. And then we had like no traffic going back. So it was awesome. It was awesome.
That's good. And did you notice the temperature drop as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could tell it got a little cool. The thing that I thought that really hit me, I mean, obviously, in totality, is pretty darn cool. The thing that I thought was curious was it didn't seem like it was a linear progression. So, like, as soon as the moon touched the edge of the sun, it didn't start getting dark. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a smooth, straight line from bright to dark. It was almost like it wasn't until that moon was like half covering the sun that you finally could tell. The intensity of the sun is just incredible. I mean, it's incredible how bright it is, even when half of it's covered.
Don't you think that's a distance issue? How far away the sun and the moon are, that it took a while for it to actually, the light to dissipate, and two, the temperature?
Well, see, Kelly said the same thing. She's like, well, but it takes time. Yeah, but we're talking about the speed of light. So from the moon to Earth, I don't know. This is out of my realm of expertise, so someone please feel free to correct me. But from the moon to Earth, it's got to be, what, a couple seconds? I mean, speed of light is stinking fast, So yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't think it'd take that long from the moon to Earth. Now, obviously, from the sun to Earth is going to be one thing, but from the moon, from the shadow side, I just think it's more of one of those things of, from our eyesight standpoint, our pupils only get so small. It can only process so much light, and I think the sun just produces so much that I think from our perception, I think there's just so much intensity coming out of that thing. It's not until you cover half of it up that we actually go, oh, wait, something's different. But then, yeah, after that, as soon as it starts getting about that half, quarter, third covered, then you can just watch it just get darker, cooler. It was cool. And the other thing that I noticed that I kind of took in was the lighting was awesome. Because here we are, we're in this black shadow, but if you look where we are in Kansas, Nebraska, you could see the horizon. The horizon's way out there, just dozens upon dozens of miles off on the horizon. Well, at that distance, now you're looking at a place that's not in shadow. So it was weird how the light was where we were versus off in the distance. It was just a cool effect. It was just really cool.
Yeah, and I'm
glad we went.
I know you got a bunch of guys sending you emails wanting to know if the Eclipse would affect the 2017 fall, oncoming rut that we
Yeah.
have that's imminent. Curious your thoughts on that.
I don't know of any. I understand that the idea. I think people are thinking, well, because daylight got shorter, and they know that daylight is what triggers the, hormone cycling, all that. People are like, well, the daylight got shorter, so that maybe is going to kick stuff off. Well, I don't think that that's. I don't think that's going to be true. I don't think that you can find any research that suggests that's going to kick anything into gear. Imagine a gigantic thunderstorm rolling through. I mean, it's going to cast a shadow over the ground. The duration of that event was just mere minutes. Even if you went from one end to the other end, say 2 hours, it's too short of a time to really trigger. The main trigger is, when did the sun hit the horizon in the morning? When did it come up? And when did it go back down? And how much darkness is in relation to how much daylight during the day? So I don't think people need to worry about what the eclipse did. However, most of the people that contact me are folks that are hunting the high country or hunting some of these, different areas in Colorado, and they were already seeing, big bulls, or what they would deem as a herd bull, in with a bunch of cows, and they're bugling their heads off. They're like, what the heck is going on? This is so stinking early. Well, yeah, I talk about that in the elk module, but, they're rethinking the rut. There's 8 videos. And for those people that went, this is several years now, but, if you guys come down to Denver International Sportsman's Expo, the Denver ISE show, I did a couple seminars on that, rethinking the rut. There's, people always talk about, I didn't hear a lot of bugling activity, or I didn't see a lot of activity, so we must have had a late rut. Well, there's only really one thing that's going to cause a late rut, but what people don't understand, there's a handful of things that actually can pull a cow into estrus early. And depending on what unit you're in and where you are and what the winter was like and the feed, forage, and, again, all these things, there's so many things that come into play, but there are places in Colorado that, yeah, you can actually have bulls making moves to the cow-calf groups early, and that can actually stimulate those cows to start exhibiting behaviors very similar to the rut, if not pull them physically into an estrus cycle a few days to a week or more earlier than what, we quote-unquote typically associate here in Colorado. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that people are seeing early activity, because, when I just did my observations in Colorado here at the beginning of the month, there was a bachelor group of 6 really gorgeous big bulls. The first day I get there, they're all palling around. 3 days into it, there's only 3 of them left. And by the time I got ready to leave, they were all gone. They were all split up. And I found the last one a half mile up the valley and about 1,000 or more feet up the mountain, and he was headed to those cow-calf groups, and that was the beginning of August, and his antlers were already, pretty darn hard. He had not started rubbing yet, but you could tell it was just a matter of days before that started cracking and peeling, and he started cleaning everything off. So,
Chris, do you think a bull's age will make him more interested in getting, thinking about the rut earlier or later? Meaning, do you think a bull that's, bred for several years remembers and it triggers in his brain, oh yeah, this is the time, this is the only time of year that, daddy gets to get some? And then maybe some of those younger bulls that haven't bred yet, do you think there's a difference? Or do you think when an elk is older, they're like, yeah, not time yet, I'm not even going to get worked up? I'm curious your thoughts on that.
I do. And it may be almost a little different than your interpretation. Yes, I mean, yeah. Depending, now there's a whole, that's a gigantic discussion about bull hormone cycling, antlergenesis, and the whole, how they get stimulated and when they want to make that what we call the pre-rut move. But let's just talk about the fact that, yes, you can see two different things on the landscape, especially if you spend a lot of time in the summer watching elk above timberline. And I say above timberline only because that's where, A, you generally see large groups of animals, and B, you get to see the large group of animals. You can glass out across there a mile, 2 miles, or whatever, and you can actually lay your eyes on them. They're not just buried in the timber. Again, in August, they're not going to be, might not be saying much, but they're still engaging one another, and they're still, interacting with one another. So as long as it's an open enough country where you can sit there and watch them, I'm sure there's places in Montana and Wyoming that maybe not be above timberline, but it's open country to where you can actually sit there and watch them in those big grassy basins and stuff. So if you sit and watch them, you'll see two different things going on. Number one, those younger age class bulls, a lot of times they're going to be right there in and around. They'll either be in the cow-calf groups or they will be really close to those cow-calf groups. Those younger age class bulls still like to have that safety blanket. They like that social component to being around the cows. They haven't kind of gone completely independent as of yet. So you'll see, and it doesn't, I don't even care about what the antler quality looks like. You can have everything from spikes to, I've seen, smaller 6x6s. They're all still, anywhere from a year and a half to 2.5-year-old bulls, maybe even a 3.5-year-old bull, still floating around those cow-calf groups all year round. Now, they might be, on the edges of them, but they're still near the cow-calf group. And then you got the other flip side of where you have those mature bulls that have, they don't, not only do they don't need that safety blanket, they don't want it. They have a completely different survival growth strategy in the summer, so they will separate themselves and go off on their own bachelor groups. But yeah, you get those more mature bulls, you absolutely, and especially if they've had a good, if it's, we could dive down this rabbit hole. If they had a very succinct rut the year before, which means the breeding happened in a very short spike, their testosterone dropped quickly, it can trigger them to lose their antlers a little earlier, which allows them to grow their antlers a little faster and earlier, which means they conclude antlers, they finish up earlier, which means it allows them just to really start getting curious. They get a little restless, and they're like, you know what, I know exactly where I need to be, because, like you said, Daddy knows this is the time. And especially in some of these units where you've got an even age class structure of your mature bulls, where you might have a handful of bulls that are going to be up there vying for those cows, you can have some of those bulls make their way to those cow-calf groups early just to start getting in there and laying claim and start bonding with some of those cows. Again, the cows are going to be the ones that choose the bull. And if he can get in that group and he can bond with those cows, the cows bond with him, they're not leaving him. And so he ends up getting his cows early. It stimulates him, stimulates the cows, and it can absolutely cause a chain of events that just starts kicking off the activity early.
Do you see this year, with people reporting that the elk are bugling early, how much of that do you attribute to people just excited and, out there and wanting it to be a good rut? I mean, you hear it every year, oh, the rut's going to be, it's going to be early this year, or it's going to be great, or it's, everyone's optimistic, which is great. It's the way to be, but it happens when it happens, right?
Well, it does. I mean, again, there are some environmental factors that can pull and swing that one way or the other. The other thing, too, is, granted, there's a lot of people that had the fear that, maybe we're going to have another bad winter last year and it's really going to hurt the elk, blah, blah, blah. Well, in a lot of our units, we might have gotten some snow earlier or whatever, but it really got to where we had a decent, the last half of the winter wasn't that bad. We actually had a really decent spring, and then we had a really decent, first part of the summer. It's been wet in a lot of the places. Body condition of the cows is just great. The body condition of the bulls is great. So this year, there's nothing that's going to subdue cycling in many of our areas at all. I mean, they're ready to cycle in based on photo period as soon as they're ready to go. In years past, however, we might have had either it was a drought cycle or we had a real harsh winter, and so some of the body condition might have been lower on the animals. They were still trying to recoup their body fat, percentages to where maybe it was a little bit more subdued later into the summer. And there were some places where the animals weren't even able to get into their normal summer ranges to begin with, just because of snow blockages and everything else. So this year, we're back on a cycle where a lot of places, the animals were able to get back to their traditional areas. They were able to pack on, fat and recover their body condition very well. And they're just waiting for that, essentially. I mean, that's not how hormones work, but in a sense, they're just sitting there waiting for that photo period to trigger to let them just cycle into estrus. But, like I talked about in that series, if there's a present mature bull, that can pull it. If the cow lost her calf, that could pull it. If she's synchronized with other cows, that could pull it. I mean, there's a bunch of different things that it can actually pull that cow, allow that cow to cycle into estrus a little earlier than say what normally you see in some places. And here in Colorado, if you talk to the DOW, they say, oh, well, that last week of September, that beginning of October is where the bulk of the breeding happened. Well, yeah, that may be in some areas, but I mean, heck, like I said before, you get the bell-shaped curve. I've repeatedly have videoed elk bulls mounting, successfully breeding cows September 6th, September 3rd. So there's places where they absolutely could cycle in early, if not, the middle of September, even before the fall equinox even hits.
Chris, we on the next episode, I want to talk to you about do you initiate your calling sequences with cow calls or bugling? And that's a question that's come in, and I think that's something that we should cover. Continue to drive safe, and look forward to getting into it on the next episode. Want to encourage the listeners. You can check the show notes to find out more about the sponsors of this podcast, and you can check the show notes to find out about row hunting resources and how to sign up for the elk module. Chris is offering a discount code using the J. Scott Podcast promo code, so to speak, and it gets you 20% off. So it's a whopping $20, is it not, Chris?
Yeah. For the 3 month, you got a 3-month option, or you got the annual option. So yeah, it's either $20 or $40. So yeah, it's not even a pack of broadheads. So it's worth it.
Sounds good, buddy. I can't wait to get into it on the next episode with you.